The rain hammered against the windows of my modest home in Minneapolis, mirroring the storm brewing inside me. My name is Barnaby, and until a few weeks ago I thought I had it all: a fulfilling career as a landscape architect, a comfortable life, and a wife, Winifred, whom I adored. We'd been married for 15 years, a milestone I'd celebrated with a surprise trip to Savannah, Georgia. Or so I thought. We celebrated. Winifred worked as a marketing manager for a large corporation downtown. Long hours were part of the job, she always said, and I, trusting and perhaps a little naive, never questioned it. I'd often come home to an empty house, a hastily scribbled note on the kitchen counter explaining she was working late or grabbing dinner with a client. I'd dutifully heat up leftovers and wait, sometimes falling asleep on the couch before she finally arrived home, smelling faintly of perfume and looking tired. It started subtly: a change in her perfume, a new dress I hadn't seen before, a distant look in her eyes when I tried to talk about my day. I chalked it up to stress, to the pressures of her demanding job. I tried to be supportive, to listen, to offer a shoulder to lean on. But she seemed unreachable. The first real crack appeared during our anniversary trip. We were having dinner at a charming restaurant overlooking the river when her phone buzzed. She glanced at it, her face flushing slightly, and quickly silenced it. "Just work," she said, avoiding my gaze. But later, when she went to the bathroom, my curiosity got the better of me. I knew I shouldn't, but I picked up her phone. It wasn't locked. A message popped up on the screen: "Can't wait to see you tomorrow night." The sender's name was saved as Client Liaison. My heart hammered in my chest. I told myself it was nothing, that I was being paranoid. But the seed of doubt had been planted. The rest of the trip was a blur. I tried to act normal, but the question gnawed at me. Who was Client Liaison? And why did the message make my stomach churn? Back in Minneapolis, the questions intensified. I started paying closer attention to Winifred's schedule, her phone calls, her emails. I felt like a detective, a role I never wanted to play. One evening, while she was in the shower, I decided to check the phone bill. I usually didn't care about that, but now, my hands trembled as I scrolled through the list of calls. There it was, a number I didn't recognize, called frequently and at odd hours. I Googled the number. It belonged to a man named Leopold who, according to his LinkedIn profile, was a senior executive at a rival marketing firm. The pieces started to fall into place. The late nights, the client dinners, the new perfume mate, all pointed to one horrifying conclusion: Winifred was having an affair. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. The air left my lungs and I stumbled back, clutching the phone bill like a lifeline. My world, my perfect little world, was crumbling around me. I sat on the edge of the bed, numb, the sound of the shower a distant roar in my ears. When Winifred came out of the bathroom, wrapped in a towel, I tried to act normal. But she must have seen something in my face, because she stopped, her expression wary. "What's wrong?" she asked. I couldn't speak. I just held out the phone bill. She took it, her eyes widening as she scanned the list of calls. Her face paled. "Barnaby, I can explain," she said, her voice trembling. "Explain what, Winifred? Explain why you've been lying to me for months. Explain why you've been betraying me." The words tumbled out, fueled by anger and hurt. She started to cry. "It just happened," she said. "Leopold and I connected. It was a mistake, a mistake. Was that all it was? A mistake that had shattered my heart, my trust, my entire life." "A mistake that you've been repeating for months," I retorted, my voice rising. She didn't answer. She just stood there, tears streaming down her face, the silence deafening. I couldn't bear to look at her. I turned away, pacing the room, trying to contain my rage. "I need you to leave," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "Barnaby, please don't do this," she pleaded. "We can work through this, I promise." "No, Winifred," I said, turning back to face her. "We can't. You broke something that can't be fixed. I can't trust you anymore. I don't even know if I love you anymore." She left that night, taking a suitcase full of clothes and a lifetime of memories with her. I watched her drive away, the taillights of her car disappearing into the rain, feeling like a part of me was dying. The next few weeks were a living hell. I couldn't eat, I couldn't sleep, I couldn't concentrate on work. I was a zombie, going through the motions, haunted by the image of Winifred with another man. I told a few close friends what had happened. They were supportive, offering words of comfort and encouragement, but nothing could fill the emptiness inside me. I felt like I was adrift at sea, with no land in sight. One evening, after a particularly grueling day at work, I decided to do something I hadn't done in years: go to a bar. I needed to escape, to forget, even if just for a few hours. The bar was dimly lit and crowded, the air thick with cigarette smoke and the sound of laughter and conversation. I found a stool at the end of the bar and ordered a whiskey. I nursed it slowly, watching the people around me, feeling like an outsider looking in. After a while, a woman sat down next to me. She was attractive, with long, dark hair and intelligent eyes. "Rough day?" she asked, her voice gentle. I hesitated, then nodded. "You could say that," I said. "I just found out my wife's been having an affair." She frowned. "I'm sorry to hear that," she said. "That's awful." We started talking. Her name was Meredith, and she was a private investigator. She told me about her work, about the cases she'd solved, the secrets she'd uncovered. I found myself drawn to her strength and her compassion. As the evening wore on, I found myself telling her everything: about Winifred, about the affair, about the pain and betrayal I was feeling. She listened patiently, offering words of wisdom and understanding. "You know," she said, "if you want to know the truth, really know what happened, I could look into it for you. I could find out who this Leopold is, what he's like, what he and Winifred were doing." I hesitated. Did I really want to know the details? Would it make things better or worse? But the thought of not knowing, of being left in the dark, was unbearable. "Okay," I said. "I want you to find out everything." Meredith started her investigation the next day. She was thorough and professional, keeping me updated on her progress. She discovered that Leopold was a notorious womanizer, a man who preyed on vulnerable women, especially those who were married. She also discovered that Winifred wasn't his only affair partner. He had a string of women, all of whom he'd seduced and then discarded. I was disgusted. Not just with Winifred, but with Leopold. He was a predator, a manipulator, a man who deserved to be exposed. Meredith also uncovered some disturbing information about Leopold's business dealings. He was involved in some shady deals, using his position to enrich himself and his cronies. She had evidence of fraud, bribery, and corruption. I realized that this wasn't just about infidelity. This was about something much bigger, something that could have serious consequences for Leopold and his company. I decided to take action. With Meredith's help, I gathered all the evidence she'd collected and took it to the authorities. I told them everything I knew about the affair, about Leopold's business dealings, about the women he'd hurt. The authorities launched an investigation. Leopold was arrested and charged with multiple counts of fraud, bribery, and corruption. His company was raided, and his assets were frozen. Winifred was devastated, not just by Leopold's arrest, but by the exposure of their affair. Her reputation was ruined, her career was over, and she was ostracized by her friends and family. I felt a pang of guilt. I hadn't wanted to hurt her, but I couldn't stand by and let Leopold get away with what he'd done. He had to be held accountable for his actions. Winifred reached out to me, begging for forgiveness. She said she was sorry for what she'd done, that she'd made a terrible mistake. She asked if there was any chance we could reconcile. I thought about it long and hard. I still loved her in a way, but the trust was gone, the damage was done. I couldn't forgive her, not completely. "I'm sorry, Winifred," I said. "But I can't. I need to move on. I need to find someone who will love me and respect me, someone who will never betray me." She understood. She didn't argue, she just said goodbye. I filed for divorce. It was a painful process, but it was necessary. I needed to close that chapter of my life and start a new one. As for Leopold, he was convicted on all charges and sentenced to a long prison term. Justice had been served. In the aftermath of the scandal, I found myself drawn closer to Meredith. We spent more and more time together, talking, laughing, and sharing our stories. I discovered that she was a kind, intelligent, and compassionate woman, someone who understood me and accepted me for who I was. One evening, as we were sitting on my porch watching the sunset, I took her hand. "Meredith," I said, "I think I'm falling in love with you." She smiled. "I think I'm falling in love with you too, Barnaby," she said. We kissed. It was a gentle, tender kiss, full of hope and promise. I realized that I had been given a second chance at love. I wasn't going to waste it. Meredith and I got married a year later. It was a small, intimate ceremony, surrounded by our closest friends and family. I finally found happiness again. I learned that even after the most devastating betrayal, it is possible to heal, to forgive, and to love again. Winifred, on the other hand, never recovered. She lost her job, her friends, and her reputation. She became a recluse, living a lonely and isolated life. I heard through mutual acquaintances that she was filled with regret, constantly replaying the events that led to her downfall. Sometimes I felt sorry for her. But I also knew that she had made her choices, and she had to live with the consequences. I, on the other hand, had chosen to move on, to embrace the future, and to find happiness with someone who truly loved and respected me. And as I looked into Meredith's eyes, I knew that I had finally found my happily ever after.